convinced that speakers are working.
Can I just see if it needs turning up?
That's better. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Northern Area Planning Committee on the 14th of October 2025. This is one of the 3 area-based planning committees of Dorset Council. For the benefit of the public attending today or watching on the live stream, I am Councillor Richard Crabb, Chair of this committee. My Vice Chair is Councillor Barry Cooper. Councillor Taylor has sent his apologies, so we will need to elect a new Vice Chair for the duration of this meeting. Please, could I nominate Councillor Barry Cooper to be Vice Chair? Could I have a proposer and a seconder? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so Councillor Barry Cooper will be the Vice Chair. Our Democratic Service officers today are John Miles. I don't think Megan Rochester is here, is she? I'm being supported by Hannah Smith for planning and Marianne Ashworth for legal. Susan Hetherington is providing support for highways. This meeting is being live streamed and will be available to view on the council website afterwards. By attending this meeting, you consent to being filmed. Can I remind everyone that when you're speaking, please speak directly into the microphones so that you can be clearly heard and seen. Please could I remind members about discussing applications with one another during any adjournments. The Planning Committee is not a public meeting, but a meeting to which the public is invited. All attendees must comply with a ruling of the chair. They must not interrupt the meeting nor cause undue disturbance. To support this, please switch off your mobile phones or select silent mode for the duration of the meeting. And those using Teams, please ensure microphones are on mute and your device volume is set to 0 to maintain audio quality. I think that it might be useful to explain the format of this meeting to members of the public. This committee is a structured meeting whose purpose is to decide planning applications. The way that it works is that there are 12 members, including the chair. Planning officers present planning applications to the members and to the public, along with a recommendation. After that, objectors, supporters, and applicants have strictly 3 minutes each to speak. Local ward members also have 3 minutes to speak. Once the public speaking is complete, members of the committee then ask mostly technical questions of the officer about the application. Once those are satisfied, we move on to the debate amongst the members. At the end, a vote is taken to determine and decide the planning application. The nature of the meeting is that strictly no questions or interruptions may be made by anyone who are not on the committee. Also, no papers or evidence can be handed to the committee at any time. Just to remind everyone, only those who have registered to speak in accordance with the speaking protocol will be invited to address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes. No material is to be circulated to members of the committee. We have 2 planning applications to determine today. The first is for a proposed extension at St Mary Church of England School at Blandford St Mary. The second is for a full planning application building of 33 houses at Salisbury Road, Blandford Forum. For each application, the case officer will be invited to present their report and recommendations. Next, I will invite members of the public who have registered to speak to address the committee in the following order: public against, public in support, the applicant or agent, town, parish council, ward members. Each speaker has 3 minutes. Please come to the small table at the front, just over there. When I call your name, sit down at the chair so that you're close to the microphone. Turn on the microphone by pressing the right-hand side button and press again to turn off when finished. Please speak clearly. I'll give you a heads up when you have 30 seconds left of your 3 minutes. Following public speaking, the planning officers will have the opportunity to address any salient points they wish to clarify, and committee members will be given the opportunity to ask questions of the planning officers before moving on to debate. When you go into councillor questions and debate, for the benefit of the public watching, can the member state their name and ward when addressing the meeting, always directing comments via the chair. At the end of the debate, I will take the vote by a show of hands. The voting detail will be recorded in the minutes if 3 or more members make the necessary request. Okay, so now I will start the agenda. Apologies. We've received apologies from Councillor David Taylor and Councillor Sherry Jesperson. Declarations of pecuniary interests or other conflict of interest, bias or predetermination. Should something come up in the meeting that you think you should declare, then please let me know straight away. The minutes of our last meeting. Please can we, by a show of hands, approve of the minutes of the last meeting held on Tuesday, the 8th of July. I'll sign it after the meeting. Okay, thank you. That's carried. Public participation. Members of the public wishing to speak to the committee on a planning application should notify the Democratic Services Officer no later than 2 clear days before the meeting. The deadline for this meeting was Friday, the 10th of October at 8:30 a.m. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak now before the applications are heard or when your application comes up? No one? Okay, that's fine. Today we have 2 planning applications to consider, as I mentioned earlier. At a very rough guide, I think the first will take roughly 30 minutes to decide, and the second one around an hour to an hour and a half. Okay, so now we're ready to start hearing the applications. Item 5, application P/FUL/2025/03818, Blandford St Mary Church of England Primary School. This is to build an extension and demolish a temporary building. This will be presented by Claire Lewis. Claire, please could you go ahead?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, technical issues. Sorry. Do you want to borrow mine? Yes. Okay. Okay. Hey, thank you, Chair. So this application comes before members as part of the development site in question is owned by Dorset Council. The proposal seeks to erect a single-storey extension to Blandford St Mary Primary School and to demolish an existing modular building on the site. So the plans are on the screen, and the blue line on this plan shows the site boundary for the school, although in this case, not the actual ownership boundary, because the site has split ownership between the Academy Trust and Dorset Council. The red line shows the area within the site where the development is proposed. Following outline permission for use of the land for education purposes in 1989, full permission for the school was granted in 1994, and it was built in the latter half of that decade. Later, single and two-storey additions were granted in 2000, 2003 and 2005. The existing mobile classroom, which is now used by Little Birch Preschool, was granted temporary permission in 1997 and later extended at the front and side following grants of planning permission in 2001 and 2012, respectively. The site is constrained by residential development and public highways on all sides. But as shown in the previous slide, the proposed development is contained within the existing site, where it's considered there is sufficient space to allow for a further extension to the main building. There are no relevant planning constraints that stand in the way of this proposed development. So the reason this application has been brought before committee today is due to the tenure of the land on which the modular preschool building is erected. As can be seen from this annotated map, all of the main school, which is this building here, and the majority of the preschool building, which is this building here, is sited within the green area, which is land that's under control of the Academy School Trust. This was land disposed of by Dorset Council and transferred in 1998. However, a shelter structure has been added to the rear of the preschool building on land owned by Dorset Council. And that's located, it can barely be seen because it's quite narrow, but it's just inside this grey area. So in accordance with procedure, any structures to be built or demolished on Dorset Council owned land must be considered at committee. And in this case, we are considering the demolition of the shelter attached to the modular building, along with the wider application to erect an extension to the main building. This partial ground floor plan of the main school building includes the existing reception classroom, toilets, and additional small teaching room, along with existing elevations here. The photographs on this plan show the existing preschool modular building to be demolished. They're very small, but there are some larger photos later on in the presentation. The proposed plans on the screen show the current reception classroom will be utilised by the nursery. So this area here will become the nursery, with a small kitchen area installed at the northern end of the room. And the new pitched roof extension to the northeast, which is this section here, will house additional rooms for the nursery operation and will include a new separate entrance to the southwest with an accessibility ramp. The former teaching room to the northwest will be enlarged with a smaller flat roof extension, creating a room of a suitable size to house the reception class with doors to the northeast elevation, which lead on to a designated reception playground area. The block plan shows that the existing preschool building will be demolished and the area returned to playground. It also shows that the existing pedestrian access along the northeastern boundary will be closed off, and the new access from the south will utilise an existing gate off Birch Avenue, which is south. It is officers' opinion that the proposals offer efficient use of the space in a moderately sized extension that ensures no net loss of playground space and far greater energy efficiency, along with greater sharing of essential facilities between the school and the nursery. So this is the view looking northeast from Birch Avenue. The preschool building can be seen to the right of the main school building. So it's this white fronted building here. And the proposed extension to the school will visually replicate the existing gable end arrangement. Whilst the prefabricated building has been well maintained, and is not an entirely unattractive feature. It is not in keeping with the well-designed modern school building, where earlier extensions have evolved to create a high-quality building of visual interest. The preschool is visible from several public viewpoints. It is energy inefficient and has exceeded its intended lifespan, so its removal is seen as a positive overall improvement to the visual amenity of the site. So, in summary, principle of development and the scale, design, impact, character, and appearance of the area is acceptable and appropriate. There's no demonstrable impact on neighbour amenity, landscape, or heritage assets. There's no alteration to the risk of flooding. There's no demonstrable risk to or change to highway safety. There's no demonstrable risk to trees. The proposal is exempt from providing biodiversity net gain, as it falls below its minimus requirement due to lack of existing on-site biodiversity features. And financial benefits include the potential for longer-term cost savings derived from the removal of that energy inefficient building. So all material considerations have been assessed. The proposal meets the requirements of the North Dorset Local Plan of the NPPF, and therefore officers recommend that members grant approval of the scheme as a positive addition to the primary school, the preschool, and the wider community of Blandford and Mary. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Claire. Members, do you have any questions? Councillor Les Fry.
Working, I don't think. But, Chair, I'd like to propose we accept it. It's been granted.
I'll have second.
Okay, we have a proposer, Councillor Les Fry, and a seconder, Councillor Carol Jones. We've got Les Fry proposing, Carl Jones seconding. So could we all have a vote for those who are in favour? That's unanimous. So therefore, the planning permission for Blandford St Mary School at Blandford has been decided. That's P/FUL/2025/03818. So we're now ready to move on to the next application. This is P/FUL/2024/06927, land south of Boney, Salisbury Road, Blandford Forum. It's a full application to build 33 homes. It'll be presented by Robert Dennis. Robert, when you are ready. Thank you. I'm not going to need to.
How long's the cable? You're right there. Sharon. Meeting. Are you in the meeting? It's the hybrid one. No. Oh yeah. Let's join now. And then you don't share. Is. Yes, please. Is it Paramount Chance? It's a shame. It's a bit Susan, have you got the microphone? I think our microphones are having problems today. Yeah.
Testing.
Well, I don't know if it is microphone. Yeah. It's enough of us. Well, I don't mind. I can't help. I could lose the inch or two, so I don't mind running it out a bit. Is the microphone working, John? We can do that.
Testing.
Yeah, it's working.
Good morning, everybody. If anybody this will work out, if not, we'll muddle through. I know most of it backwards and forwards. I hope you're all well this morning. Your drive-in was pleasant, as mine was. The chair has already set up the description for the development.
I think you're on Teams as well. That's why you've got feedback.
All right.
Sorry.
Excellent.
That's better.
The proposal before you is to erect 30 dwellings and garages and parking, form the vehicular access from Salisbury Road, associated infrastructure, public open space, carry out site preparations and ancillary works. This first slide is your location plan. If you're not familiar with the site, it is what was the side garden of Bolney and a portion of agricultural land to the southeast. It also includes the access arrangement going north into the local center of the approved Blandford Parklands development that surrounds the site. You see this here in blue. The next slide gives you a bit more context of the approved development. So over here on the right is the red line for the approved development. This darker red has full permission. The rest of the site has outline permission. At the time of that application, the owner, Wyatt's Homes, did not have control of this site, so it was not a part of that previous application. This is an illustrative master plan, which shows you how they envisage the neighboring site to be constructed and come forward. The next slide is basic constraints plan. The red here and here is the Cranbourne Chase National Landscape, A&B. This purple line is the parish boundary line for Pimpern and Blandford Forum. The site also has a tree preservation order on it, which I'm sure you picked up on in reading the officer report. The next slide is bird's eye view, aerial view. As mentioned, you have the agricultural land there to the southeast. This is the side garden, and there's a defunct tennis court there Moving along, this next slide shows you the master plan, the proposed layout. You'll have 2 blocks of flats, the northeast and the roundabout. The roundabout gives quite a benefit to the scheme in the way it connects with Blandford and will function with the rest of the development. It provides better crossing arrangements, slows traffic down. And then the basic design of these 33 houses fits well, and I'll show you in a second. The ethos of the rest of the development. And the next few slides are the parameter plans for the approved development. And one of the things we were looking at with the previous development was to get banding of trees across the site. And this site has the natural banding already in place. So it's fitting well with the existing parameter plans and what we envisage and indeed have approved. The next slide is a simple The next slide is the land use plan for the approved development. And this essentially shows you that this is the local center. The purple is for housing. The green space is open space or informal space. You can see what was approved has a high percentage of open space and green space. The next few slides come from the landscape visual impact assessment, which has been online with the application, so I'm sure you all have had a look through it in detail. This just gives you an idea of how it's fitting into the landscape. These first 4 pictures are essentially north, east, south, and west. So if you're standing in an agricultural field looking north, you'll be seeing houses and very large trees over the top of them. Looking eastward, you have the distinctive tree alignment. You can see a faint blue line there. That's just letting you know this is the approved development. Next slide. Continuing in the cardinal points, you have to the south the views out to the Cranbourne Chase. And then if you look to the west, you have rising land, which goes up to a tree belt. And then it's the A354 there as well. Next slide is from in front of Volney, and looking at Volney House. This is looking what would be towards the site, backward fencing. And if you were standing within the development site, you can see a noticeable rise in the land looking towards Salisbury Road, also known as the A354. And then you have the defunct tennis courts here and foliage. Next slide is again from the LVIA, just the wider views. If you have an opportunity to go look at it from afar, you see how the existing tree belt encapsulates the wider site to more distant views. The next few slides are details about the scheme itself. So this is the dwelling mix in terms of both affordable housing and the sizes of the units. Since this is a full application, we have details of materials and and details on all of the houses already. This is one of the plans showing you the street scene, what it would look like. Up there is the key. So you're looking in the northeast direction. That's the block of flats in the corner. And then as you go down into the site, these are the dwellings. I have some a few sample dwellings coming up. The materials, as you can tell from that street scene, are high quality, and they have been presented with the application. Along with boundary treatments, which you saw in the street elevations to some extent. Moving along, this is the illustrative landscape. As you can see, there will be street trees lining the streets and utilizing the existing TPO trees that are within the site. This next slide is the tree protection plan that was submitted with the application. I think I made reference in the report that none of the trees being taken out are what they consider to be above category C, A being the highest, and B, C, and U. So they're fairly low-grade trees that they were proposing to remove and then replacing. The next few slides are details of individual key properties, in my opinion, that I thought I'd bring to your attention. This is the block of flats. That is the one on the northeast corner that you saw in the street scene. The other one to the southwest. This is what it would look like facing onto the street scene, well, to some extent. As you saw, there's rising land, so in actual fact, you won't see the full mass of this from the street scene. But that faces the 835 Salisbury Road, and there's foliage and tree planting there, so it's going to be, the view is going to be screened to some extent. This is what it would be looking like into the site internally. This is what plots 14 and 22. Those two plots are the ones closest to the southern border, southeast, that go into the bigger, wider development. And those are feature buildings, in my opinion. They're going to be brick and flint with slate roofs. Moving along, another example within the site, plots 23 and 24, so you can see the quality of the build. The next 4 or 5 slides are going to be handed over to my colleague from Highways to explain to highlight these matters. This first slide is for the proposed highway adoption. Just tell me this switch.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. It should just turn towards you.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members. Susan Hetherington, representative the Highway.
Susan, I don't think we have the microphone on. I don't think people will hear.
The volume on
Okay.
the side, the button on the right hand side is a volume up. Can you hear me now? No.
Well, we can, but
Not really.
Just go with that one.
yeah.
Yeah, that's better.
Thank you, Robert. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair. Susan Hetherington, representing Highway Authority. So the assessment criteria for the Highway Authority considers that all the trips in the consented development be quantified. Therefore, we are assessing the additional trips with redistribution of those trips, utilising the additional access point, but still taking into account the trips from the consented development. So turning to the first slide, this shows proposed internal layouts with a new northern access source direct. The pink shading area is indicative adoption under development of this side forward. As most of you know, areas of initial adoption of planning consideration that will say that geometric layout aligns with guidance in planning terms. So it's designed for a low speed environment with a 6.7 wide spine road offering the future potential to enable fastest paths and route paths to the consented parcels. It's flanked with footway on one side and shed on the other side, which harmonises with the outline consent to provide active travel infrastructure. That's for the permeability around the site and connectivity on the outskirts. Car parking is probably important for guidance and proportionate when taking into account future-proofing model shift changes for short journeys to be taken by walking, wheeling and cycling opportunities. Sweat parks have been provided to demonstrate emergency services can have safe and secure access as well as all the cycling users. So in terms of network capacity, the applicant used industry standard tools. There are predicted to be an additional 16 two-way movements in the AM peak hour and the 14 two-way movements in the hour. When compared to baseline data events on the existing network, these are not regarded as severe. However, to ensure that the assessment is robust, impact assessment has been carried out for all those scenarios, taking into account incentive development. So there's quite a lot of detail in this story. Apologies, so I just want to give a bit of an overview. This is the proposed compact roundabout layout, which includes access into the spines at the bottom and the bypass left, northern access up to the store concession parcel and the western access towards the should be noted that there is already a layout here with 3 arms, so adding an additional arm is required to form a compact roundabout. This seeks to provide a safer layout, reduce vehicle speeds, enhance safety for pedestrians and cyclists, while supporting active travel connectivity across the area from forward. This will allow for inclusive mobility, space for uncontrolled pedestrians, cycling crossing points. To the west, that's the pedestrian control crossing point. And to the north and northwest, that's to the point with pedestrians. These are proposed within a desired path, considering the network capacity. The applicant has carried out modelling work using industry standard tools such as junction line and the RKD to ensure that the layout will operate within capacity within the predicted growth. Further modelling was undertaken at the impact of junctions to include sensitivity testing, modelling for the outline consent. This has been deemed as acceptable and able to operate within capacity. So the paths have demonstrated that with local types and adequate paths and repaths, and an assessment of the entry for visibility space have been reviewed for each path. So
can you speak up, please?
So that all the drivers can see traffic and the users as they're circulating. These works will be part of section 278 works and wholly at the applicant's expense. Independent road safety audits will be undertaken. These works will be subject to further detailed signed by the highway agreements team. I think we can even just the next couple of slides.
It just indicates the fact that the applicant has done a very robust assessment of the gradients coming into the sites, looking at the minor and major contours. So summing up, when consideration is given to the MPPF 15116, residual cumulative impact cannot be regarded as severe, and as such, the highway authority are unable to recommend a refusal on the highway grounds. Unable to recommend, and we are recommending a conditional approval. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, I've got a couple other slides here as requested. Just what it looks like today, the access points and the foliage that is along the roadside. So this fence line to the road is under highway control, and that could be cut back if necessary. And then the next, so that's Salisbury Road looking towards Langford, and then in the opposite direction. The same comments. That hedging here could be trimmed back should the highway authority deem it necessary. And then lastly, this slide just shows you the distance from the proposed roundabout and to the existing one, which is over 100 meters. And that was it. There's no particular issues there being raised by the highway authority. I saved a few things as an update sheet at the very end. It's minor tweaks to conditions. So I would suggest that we add 2 conditions, and this is in consultation with our ecologists, the Dorset Natural Environment Team, and modify condition 15. So the first one actually was also in consultation with Councillor Rideout regarding bat boxes and bird boxes. And in my own personal opinion, it's not a bad thing to have too many bat boxes or bird boxes. And in which case, I'm suggesting that a condition be added to it details that 50% of all the dwellings hereby approved would include a bat box and a bird box. So it's the 2 of them, not just 50% bird boxes. Stop, full stop, next one. 50% bat boxes and stuff. That's a suggestion. Then add a condition relating to the landscape and ecological management as set out there. That comes directly from the ecologist. And they also suggested that we add some wording to condition 15 regarding the construction environment management plan to tie up and tighten up things from their point of view in terms of biodiversity. So with those, I didn't think those were contentious. We're recommending approval. It's been pointed out to me that we need formal adoption of a screening opinion. You'll have noted in the report comments on the environmental assessment, which we believe were negative, but we need a formal screening on that. Should that be any different, we would undergo additional consultation and bring the report back to the committee. So subject to that screening and the signing of the Section 106 legal agreement as set out in the report and planning conditions, we're recommending this for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, so now we move on to the speakers in public in objection. Please could I ask Martin Richley to come up to speak. Martin, you've got 3 minutes and I'll give you a 30-second warning when you come towards the end at 2.5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please press the button on your
I think that's the
microphone.
button. I've got a green light. Well, off we go. So, if someone else puts a microphone on, I'll shout.
Hang on.
Right now.
See if this will do it.
That was loud enough.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to everyone. I'm a local election resident. I get a little bit annoyed that this is called balance development. It is independent, and I wish people would refer to that all the time. I'm also a pragmatist. As soon as this land is sold to development, I'm sure that something's going to be built.
Yes.
I expect many of my local neighbours were hoping for a development more in line with two houses on either side, Greenbanks and Maloney.
Yeah.
Or possibly a development along the lines of community house trust, where we had homes affordable for local people, rather than what is currently proposed. I produced a letter of objection to the current proposal based on what I believe are reasonable grounds. However, I, like many, feel that our objections, comments are not worth the paper they are written on, as they seem to be just ignored by the system, especially as there is rarely, if any, feedback or changes made based on our comments or objections. I would, however, like the committee, as they consider this application, to reflect on two things. When this plot of land was sold, a mature orchard of some 30 trees, plus hedging and other mature trees, were grubbed out over a weekend before an emergency tree preservation order was obtained. Will the promised planting regime of this application replace not only the trees and shrubs that will need to be removed for this development, and we have seen in the presentation that hedging rows next to the road will be taken out of the new roundabout, but also taking into account the orchard and the other trees that were cut down before this application was submitted, and how this will be monitored and enforced. Secondly, I believe that it is both the government's and the council's aim to produce integrated housing developments. The layout of this site has all the social and affordable housing sited together at the entrance, close to the main road, while all the commercial housing are set at the back of the development. This seems to me to be segregation and not integration. Therefore, should the current design layout be amended to provide a more integrated development, which is what the government is seemingly asking for. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you very much. Could I now please ask Janet O'Connell to speak? Is Janet there? No? Okay. So I'll now move on to asking Tim Hoskington to speak, Planning Director of Wyatt Homes.
Good morning, Chair and members. I'm Tim Hoskinson, Planning Director of Wyatt Homes. Those of you who don't know Wyatt Homes, we're a Dorset-based house builder with a track record of delivering high-quality, community-focused developments to stand the test of time. We're proud of the places we create, and we're committed to building well-designed homes using locally based trades and contractors. The application that comes before you today sits within the wider East Manford site that was granted planning permission by this committee last year. To give you a brief update on the wider application, the detailed design works are progressing well, and the 278 agreement with Dorset Council is expected to be completed within the next few months. We're also working on the discharge of conditions applications. We anticipate that the development will commence on the first phase of the wider site towards the middle of next year. The planning application that you're considering today fits hand in glove with the wider site. It wasn't included in the original application as it wasn't in our control at that time, but we've worked hard to secure it, and we are pleased to be able to bring this application forward now. I'm sure you recognise the importance of this site to the overall master plan. I'd like to draw your attention to a number of benefits that it brings to the overall scheme. It will allow the main tree-lined avenue that runs through the centre of the wider site to connect up to Salisbury Road and the local centre beyond. This improves pedestrian, cycle and vehicular connectivity through the site. It also allows a better route for buses. Instead of routing along the edge of Then Park, buses would be able to use the primary street through the main development, which would then extend through the current application site up to the new roundabout on Salisbury Road. And more buses are moving to Closed Captions in support of the application. The provision of the new roundabout will also improve access to the local centre and new allotments on the northern side of Salisbury Road. The provision of the roundabout would also create an attractive and welcoming frontage with development fronting onto the Salisbury Road in a way that fits with the existing development and complements the local centre that has planning consent to the north. The layout follows the approved design principles of the neighbouring scheme with generous landscaping, street trees and central green areas. The design will integrate seamlessly with the wider scheme using carefully selected materials and retaining key landscape features along with new planting to assimilate the development into its surroundings. The proposals will not affect the impervious setting or its separation from the platform. The gap between settlements is primarily to the northeast of Then Park and not in the application area. Homes will be 2 stories with a variety of types and sizes ranging from 1-bed apartments to 5-bed homes. Development will include 30% affordable housing provision, fully integrated, and with Section 106 contributions in line with the wider site. All of the homes will be built to high standards of energy efficiency in line with the emerging future home standards, will incorporate heat pumps, solar panels, high levels of thermal insulation, energy efficient appliances, EV charging points. These measures will significantly reduce running costs.
30 seconds.
As well as help with that climate change. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Please could I now ask Councillor Alan Cross to speak from Blandford Town Council. You have 3 minutes and I'll let you know when there are 30 seconds left.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members of the committee. I have been before you for a 3rd time in talking about this area, and I am chair of the Blandford Town Council Platform Planning Committee, and I'm speaking in favour and also on behalf of the Blandford District Neighbourhood Group, which is Newsamar and ourselves, Blandford, and with Blandford and with Branston. We tend to do most of our work together when it comes to these applications. We were impressed, Chair, by the comments and thoughts given by this committee when passing divisional applications some 12 months ago. When it was described as the most informed and inspirational scheme that had been seen before this committee. We noted also that the attributes of that scheme are included in this wider application and are actually favourably received by the planning officer, and he has noted that he hopes you'll actually look upon this quite favourably. We accept that most of the land involved here is within Pembroke, but note that Dorset puts greater weight behind the development around the 4 hub towns in North Dorset, which includes Blandford Forum. I would claim that any neutral observer entering this area would see that the legend area acts as a whole will be seen as an entrance to the urban settlement of Blandford Forum. We're pleased to see all the eco-friendly attributes that are being put into these 33 properties, with the normal the heat pumps, the EV charging points, PV cell roofs, etc., and the attention to bats and bird boxes, which was raised by Mr. Dennis just now. Not to mention the total replacement of 13 low quality trees to be replaced by sterling new ones and the shrubs leading to the original parkland development. Because although this is an infill site, it actually leads to the greater development which has already been accepted. It also includes this roundabout, which I
50 seconds.
use every day in my passage into Blandford, my newspaper. So I'm quite prepared to that will slow the traffic down considerably. And that is something I know that the residents of Blackburn have always asked. We also noted that the new Dorset APS to be fixed from 31st of October is just expected to show an land supply of possibly as low as 2.7%.
Okay, that's 3 minutes.
And we also know that the Blandford
That's the 3 minutes.
have been adhered.
So thank you. So thank you, Councillor Cross, for that. Could I now ask Councillor Peter Slocum to come up to speak from Pimpern Parish Council? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I'm Peter Slocum. I've served on Pimpern Parish Council since 1983. Constant theme of the application is that the site is in blank form. It is not. It forms part of Let, which is contained within the parish of Pimpern. Parish of Pimpern is wholly within the Clanton Chase National Landscape. We would seek assurance that all official points in their response to this application have been considered by the planning officer. The proposed section 106 requires amendment to record Pimpern as a local parish throughout the document. This is yet another application by Whitehomes that goes against the Pimpern plan, which was updated as recently as October 2022 after a thorough review. It conflicts with our plan on many points. Our neighbourhood plan more than meets the requirement for housing in our area. So if there is clear conflict with our policies MCN and policy SB. The addition of a new roundabout so close to the bypass intended to connect through the larger site has not been properly modelled and we believe underestimates the impacts. The impact of 2 junctions in close proximity, plus lay-by parking for the local centre, plus a bus stop in the road, plus pedestrian crossing points on the roundabout, will cause immense driver frustration. This is a recipe for accidents, exactly where we would expect our children to cross the road. This is hindering rather than prioritising pedestrian journeys. And air quality would be detrimentally affected by increased traffic congestion. Putting yet more houses in the gap than exist in the south of Glen, an area of unique character in our parish, diminishes the semi-rural nature of its setting against the very intent of our policy LC and in conflict with our policy LDC. Whilst this gap will be
You have 30 seconds.
by the now
Peter.
approved scheme, the extent to which the development will be set back from Letton Park has yet to be decided and does not set present. Our plan requires 40%, not 30%, of the total dwellings to be provided as affordable houses. Our neighbourhood plan should not be seen as an optional requirement. I would urge the committee
30 seconds.
application, given the conflicts
Right, your time is up. 3 minutes.
with the neighbourhood plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We now have Councillor Sherry Jesperson. Given that she sent her apologies, John Miles is going to read a statement on her behalf. Thank you, John.
It's got green at the moment.
Why don't they check these things before? It's just ridiculous today.
That could be why. That could be on. That's why it is. It's on. If they do.
Hello, John Marston, Six Services Officer. I'm reading a statement of Councillor Showjess, board member for Hill reports and the times. So may I remind committee members that this application is located in the parish of Pimburn, not in Blandford, and that currently we are meeting our 5-year housing land supply, so the tilted balance does not apply. Our policy therefore carrying full weight. There are, in my view, grounds on which you could refuse this application should you so wish. The application is outside of the settlement boundary, so it is in the countryside where the North Dorset local plan requires that development should be existed. The application also conflicts with Pimburn neighbourhood plan, which designates this area as an important gap protecting the setting between the village and the town of Blandford. The neighbourhood plan is up to date and carries full weight. The application is in the setting of the Cranbourne Chase National Landscape, and therefore the CROW Act 2000 applies. This requires Dorset Council not, as the report suggests, simply to take account of, but to seek to further the purposes of the designation. This application represents a further incursion into the farmland landscape, and the community impact is relevant here. If you are minded to this development, could I ask the committee to raise 2 points? That's all I've got to say.
Okay, thank you. Robert, are there any salient points that you would like to reply on? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. With regard to policy as shown in the report, this is an urban extension to Blandford, is how we've looked at it, and consistent with the previous application.
Sorry, you cannot interrupt.
It's white land.
I'm sorry. No interruptions. This discussion is purely within the committee. Carry on, please, Robert.
The other point I wanted to touch upon was the integrated housing. One of the plans showed the mix of dwellings and the layout, and we find that to be acceptable in this instance. But then, as set out in the report, details about the housing land supply were, as set out in the report, accurate. And whilst it's true that policies are getting full weight at this point, what we've experienced from the planning inspectorate is that the imminent fall in our housing land supply is a very material consideration, and this is how we've approached this report. Thank you.
I just have 1 point.
Yes, Hannah is going to make an additional point.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Robert. Yes, I think it's important to note it's set out in the report. There is a conflict with the development plan, because this is within the parish of Pimburn, is covered by the Pimburn neighbourhood plan, apart from a small portion of the site, which is the roundabout at the junction there. So we have had full regard to the development plan as a whole, which is the Pimburn neighbourhood plan and the North Dorset local plan. I think if you're looking at the planning balance there, those conflicts with the development plan in terms of the location of the development and the provision for the affordable housing is considered to be outweighed by the significant material considerations of the benefits of the housing provision and also the benefits to the enhanced highway infrastructure that will be provided to the wider site. So I think it's important to note the Pimburn neighbourhood plan, and that is part of the development plan. But there are clear reasons why, in this instance, the 30% affordable housing has been secured, which is the same as the wider allocation, the wider development next door to this site that has also been granted permission. But they're valid points that have been raised by the parish council there, but they have been fully considered in the assessment that the officers made. Thank you, Chair.
But just one point to be clear, in terms of that plan up there, which part of it falls within the parish of Pimpern?
So this slide showed
All of it. All of it.
Yeah,
all of it.
all of it. So this slide shows you the boundary line, the purple line, and the star is where the housing development will be going.
It's all
So
in-
relative to
Right.
this plan, it's essentially the roundabout. The dividing line goes down the middle of the street. So it's the roundabout.
It falls into Blandford.
And as we said, we looked at this as an urban extension, similar to what we did with the previous proposal. Because when you looked at the previous proposal, you see that that line to the fields. This one here, the approved development spans across that, and we took into consideration. We didn't just ignore the Pimpern neighborhood plan. We did take it into consideration in the design. And came up with an excellent scheme, in our opinion.
But it's illegal.
It's illegal. I think it's illegal.
No interruptions, thank you.
Sorry, I will interrupt. Where's the air?
You're not.
What about air pollution?
This is not a meeting where the members of the public can participate other than the speech for 3 minutes.
Where's the covenanted area? What have you done today? That's covenanted.
I'm
area.
sorry, I'll have to ask you to leave. You keep on talking.
But that's the point. You're doing something
You-
illegal.
You are not allowed to speak. You've had your
I don't
opportunity
care.
to speak. Okay, let's move on. Thank you. Do we have any questions? Councillor Apothecary.
Thank you, Councillor briefing. Actually, I don't have any questions, but I would like to finish the sentence that Councillor Chesterton wrote on if you are minded to permit this development. Could I ask the committee to raise 2 points? One was the Section 106 funding gives nothing to Pimpern, the parish in which the application is located. Previous application at this location allocated no S106 funding to Pimpern either. This is pretty unfair. And secondly, the site is in a very important designated dark skies area. It would be wise to strengthen this condition to cover domestic lighting, which could easily cause harm. So I'm just passing that on because I just happen to know that's what she said.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fry.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a number of questions, if I may, please. Can you just clarify what the situation with the previous field, the main field, that was approved was it last year or the year before? Did that go to appeal, or what happened after that? There was.
Go ahead.
No, Chair. You'll remember it came to committee twice, and I think the vote was 8-1 and then 7-1. And then the Secretary of State called it in. And then with the change of administration, the Secretary of State handed it back to us and said that issue the decision.
Thank you, that's very helpful. I knew it went to the Secretary of State, but I couldn't remember the outcome or what that was, or wasn't aware of the outcome, but that's still stands. Can you clarify what the situation, please, is with settlement boundaries at the moment? I've heard a comment that the settlement boundaries, due to the pressure to build houses, may be removed.
But that doesn't apply yet.
Chair,
It doesn't apply.
this is part of the consultation that's going on at the moment for the Dorset-wide adopted local plan. And it is mooted in there that one of the ways it hasn't been adopted, it is a suggestion of allowing a bit more flexibility in the settlement boundaries to allow housing to be built immediately adjacent to settlement boundaries, and possibly, and that's being thrashed out in the month, so there, it's not a policy, but it is being considered.
Yes, Hannah.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the established settlement boundaries, this site is outside of the Blandford settlement boundary in the North Dorset district-wide local plan. It's also outside of the Pimpern neighbourhood plan settlement boundary limits. Likewise, the site next door, a large portion of that was covered by the Blandford Plus neighbourhood plan, and that plan allocated the site for housing mixed-use development. There was also a portion in that application that was also in the countryside because it was in the Pimpern neighbourhood plan area, so the portion to the north. So this site was completely within the countryside for the purposes of the development plan, and that's why there is a conflict spatially with that. We then have to go on to consider, are there material considerations that indicate a departure from the development plan? And in this instance, we have the benefit attributed to the housing provision, including affordable, in the context of a significant housing shortfall. We do have the APS in place at the moment, so we don't have the tilted balance engaged. That will fall away at the end of this month, and the tilted balance will apply. But we are, in terms of decision making today, talking about a flat balance. But in the context of the significant material consideration of an increased housing supply that needs to be met in sustainable locations such as this. So that's the context in terms of the development plan and how it interacts with this site and the adjacent site. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah.
Could you clarify again, please, the 5-year land supply, where we actually are today? Because that just ran out at the end of this month, was it?
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of today, we have the annual position statement, the APS, which is fixed till the end of this month at 5.2 years, 0.2 years, sorry, across the whole of the Dorset Council area. So that is the situation today, and that's what's reflected in the report in terms of it being a flat balance. We do have the material consideration that since it was fixed, we have a significant increase in our housing supply. And that is a material consideration now, even in the context of there being a flat balance that we have to attribute weight to. Once the APS falls away, we will have a different land supply position. We don't know exactly what that is yet. If you look at the Marnell appeal, we know it will be below 5 years, but we don't have an exact figure on that at the moment. So in terms of decision making today, we have the APS. We were not applying the tilted balance. We do have the significant material consideration of increased housing supply. And in the context of this site, it's a sustainable location that has also other benefits in terms of the highway impacts and the accessibility and the active travel and greater permeability through the site. Because one of the points about the consented scheme is it had one single access point. I know that was raised previously, and this would provide an alternative access into the site, which helps in terms of the bus route and pedestrian and car movements through the site. So it needs to be considered that in the overall sort of planning balance.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And one more. I note that the Pimpern neighbourhood plan asks for 40% affordable. My understanding, the normal figure is around 30%, and that 40% is unusual.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the question. So yes, the local plan requires 30% affordable in Blandford Horham and extensions to the town, and that's set out in policy 8 of our local plan. The Pimpern neighbourhood plan requires 40% affordable housing. In the context of this site, the reason why we've secured 30 is its relationship to Blandford and the material consideration that it is acting as an extension to it. But it is of note that the development plan does pull in different directions there in terms of the requirement in Pimpern parish to meet the Pimpern requirements, and in relation to Blandford where it is 30%. And that is detailed in the report. So we considered the amount of affordable housing that has been considered as acceptable on this site in the context of it being policy 8, an extension to Blandford, and that's what the developers proposed, with a mix of affordable housing, which is policy compliant in terms of its mix. I don't know if we've got the 10-year plan there. There are some flats at the entrance, but there are some other dwellings through the site which are also affordable, because that was one point that was raised about the pepper potting. through the site. I think a point on that as well is they're definitely tenure blind in terms of the quality of the development. You can see is the entrance is well designed, and the general quality of the development all the way through is helping in terms of making sure the affordable is indistinguishable from the open market units.
For the moment, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rideout, please. Yeah.
Okay, trouble with the microphone. Belinda Rideout, representing Gillingham Ward. Robert, I just wonder, could you just point out the pedestrian links through the site and how they link up with the other approved sites, please?
Certainly.
So might be easiest just to look at the highway plan here. You can see around the roundabout, you have pedestrian crossings on all four of the junctions. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
And then as it connects with the main development to the south, we had mentioned that buses will be able to pass one another here. You may or may not recall details of previous scheme, but when we looked at that, there was going to be a bus exit only route through here, this green area.
Mm-hmm.
You see that line?
Mm-hmm.
So that was what was being considered. And there wasn't the pedestrian access or leakages actually there as being proposed here. There might have been, but I doubt as if it would have been so ideally located to the proposed local center. And you'll see there's the existing footpath can still, the wider side can still be managed and put in there through the phasing plans. But if you do like to read transport statements, transport assessments, they do note within their transport assessment the improvements in terms of traffic flow and calming measures that having that roundabout there will bring, because it stops people from revving the engines as soon as they come out of the roundabout to sit down the road. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I ask one more question?
Yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Robert, you mentioned about amendment to condition 16, ecology and bird and bat boxes. Can I just ask that bird boxes include Swift bricks as well, please?
Certainly, swifts were mentioned specifically in their report as some of the species that are crossing the site, so those definitely will be in the mix. And I'll add that wording.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Major.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Major, Dorchester Street. I see it's been improved on the highway, talked a lot about the improvements made from the original plan. My first thought is, all right, you put a new roundabout in, and there's that road there. Is it not going to turn into a bit of a rat run? And if that was the case, I don't know, maybe I've missed it. Are there going to be any traffic calming measures on that new road?
Robert.
Thank you, Chair. I can't predict the future whether it's going to be a rat one, but I can only speak my own opinion matter. And if I were the driver, I wouldn't find anything advantageous about coming in the site here and then taking this pedestrian housing development route to what is going to be another roundabout that's been approved here. And then getting onto the network, the 8354, to go in either direction. So with all respect, in my own opinion on that, because I don't foresee that happening. Is there another part to that question? Or okay, okay. Do you have any other questions to come back on the Councillor Major? Councillor Wood.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My main question, well, I've got a couple of questions. I'll start off with the definition of this as an extension to Blandford. How can you elaborate on how that's come about, like how that's defined, and also how far does that extend, let's say?
Robert, go ahead. Sorry, could you repeat the second half of the question?
How far does it extend?
So in the consideration of the larger original application, Blandford Town Council has an allocation for 400 houses to be built, roughly in this area where you see that, and including development of this area. The applicant had an option to purchase this land and build on it, and they came forward with a scheme. The evolution that started off as a 600 unit scheme. We said, no, we didn't like the design, there's too much. Then they went away and lowered it to 520, and we still didn't like the design. And then, so there's some tough negotiations going on. And then they came up with a scheme for 490, and I personally like this scheme quite a bit. If it gets built out as it's shown on plan, it's an excellent scheme. So in the previous proposal, we were considering the environmental statement and how it would affect air, noise, landscape impact, and all of those matters that come with development. So it was a long thought out process, and with the original application, I think we had it for 3 or 4 years because it spanned COVID, came in 2020. Yeah, so does that answer your question? Am I missing anything there?
I'm more, so what's the issue here slightly is that this is a Pinburn, mainly in Pinburn, but it's being defined as a Blandford extension. So what I want to understand is, how is it being defined as a Blandford extension rather than a development in Pinburn?
Yeah, essentially, it's the location you can find, because it's just the location, since it's immediately adjacent to Blandford, and they had the allocation in their plan. So it's that allocation started off as an urban extension, and there's a continuation right there. Rather than try to make two designs of something in Pinburn, something here, they did a comprehensive design. The terminology is just so evident to its juxtaposition, proximity, immediately adjacent to Blandford, so it's an extension to them. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So this new development would then be defined as a Blandford development. So, and then would that mean that any further developments extending from there would also be a Blandford extension and not a building in Pinburn as well? Because obviously Blandford is now being extended, let's say.
Thank you, Chair. The site is within the parish of Pinburn, and that will remain the same. What we're talking about is how the site will function in terms of its functional relationship to the settlement and its facilities. So it's always going to be in Pinburn until, unless any boundary changes occur. We're talking about it in the context of how people would access services, they would be, they may go to Pimpen, but they'd be more likely to use the active travel routes into Blandford. And that's how we're talking about it in the context of how it's functioning, rather than it then being Blandford and now then being Pimpen and then being Blandford. It's a sort of functional relationship. But the development plan is clear in terms of this is covered by the Pimpen Parish Council, Pimpen Neighbourhood Plan, and that's why we've considered both in the considerations. We've considered predominantly Pimpen, the Pimpen plan in the context of this site and its characteristics and what it's serving. But there's no proposed change that it would now become Blandford. It's that functional relationship that's there, and how the active travel routes take you back into Blandford and its services there. And the local centre is provided adjacent to the allocation as part of the allocation, so it has some sustainability measures that may mean that it will be sustainable in its own right. There's a land allocated for a primary school, so it functions in that context, and that's what Robert was talking about in terms of being designed as a comprehensive development. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. One more. Just one more. Thanks for this.
Yes, thank you. Just in terms of how we look at this application, because obviously we talked a lot about the surrounding development, but my understanding is that's actually a completely separate thing, and this is an independent full application in itself. Is that correct?
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is a separate planning application, so it's not linked in terms of the other scheme, but the intention of the developer is to bring them both forward, so that there are two access points that serve the full range of active travel, rather than the proposal that Robert showed you that had limited access in this direction. So it is a standalone application to be considered today, but it is a material consideration that we have granted the neighbouring site. So it has to be assessed on its own merits, separate application in the context of the wider development that's been granted as a material consideration. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman. My concerns are really highways. One concern is that roundabout there. It's on a road, 9-hour limit. And if you look at the size of that roundabout compared to the one farther up the road, or the proposed one on the bypass, it's a lot smaller. To me, it looks a lot smaller. And what my concern is that roundabout, lorries and that will come, they just go straight over it. They just go straight over it. And as been said, if that road, that development is joined up with the other development, there's going to be a lot more vehicles then going out of there. So my concern is the roundabout, the highway issues there, the road safety issues there, but also pedestrians coming out of that estate. If it's joined up with the other estate, there'll be more pedestrians coming out there. There's no footpaths on that side of the road, therefore they're going to have to cross over the road to the footpaths to walk to Blandford or walk to Pimpen. So, it's the size of the roundabout and the joining up with the bigger development. If you're joining up that 33 houses with say 500 houses, there's going to be a lot more coming out of there rather than coming out the other way. So, but also, principal development, there is a conflict, with the development plan for Pimpen.
Okay, thank you.
Highways to come back. Highways.
Yeah, highways. Could you, Susan, please, could you come back on that?
Yes, thank you, Councillor, for the question. So the proposed is a compact roundabout, which by virtue is slightly different to the other roundabout. So it's giving priority to circulating traffic. Vehicles will be using the roundabout, and those will have to give way to them on the roundabout. So it provides a safe space, saving more efficient, and traffic can't benefit. So it will be designed in accordance with guidance and will be subject to 278 works with the highway agreements team. So have further detailed design work So that will go through audit processes.
Thanks. I'm just come back on that, Chairman. It's designed for the 33 houses, but if it's joined up with the other 500, why is that roundabout is of a smaller dimension than the other one that's proposed on the Blanford bypass?
Because of the width of the road, I would think.
I think what you're saying, Councillor Cooper, is that to the south of this development of 33, there'll be a whole load more houses.
Yeah.
Traffic and people, pedestrians, cars, vehicles will go up through that small roundabout. And what we're saying, as it grows, could that roundabout then be inadequate? Okay.
And why is it showing different to the one that's proposed on the Blanford bypass?
Chair.
It's a different road, though, isn't it?
Let me first step in for this, then I'll pass over to Susan. You need to remember that with this approved development, we don't have a secondary access coming into the site from the north. So its permeability and linkages with Blanford, whilst good and considered to be safe when we've approved it, is being enhanced and made better by having this roundabout and this secondary access from the north. Otherwise, you had, as I said, this is a bus lane, which was going to be a one-way only, exclusively. And so now you have pedestrian footpaths that can lead you up into the local center in the future. Their transport assessment, which I would encourage you all to read these things when they come in, highlights the benefits of having this roundabout here, slowing down traffic and allowing the permeability and movement, which is part and parcel of why our highway engineers have not raised objections. Susan, is there anything you'd like to add there?
Yeah, thank you, Robert. So the modelling work in industry standard tools that's been undertaken has been a consistent approach in terms of what information has gone into that modelling that's been taken from the consented developments. And we are just looking at the additional movements and the redistribution. So it actually will lessen the impact on hilltop roundabout and just providing additional access whilst also encouraging active travel. So we're accepting the proposal.
Just to have some clarity on that, when you've done that modelling, have you taken into account that there's already permission for housing to the south of this development? So that is all modelled, we know how much traffic there is, taking into account pedestrian school children looking to school, probably north of the roundabout. So can you just give us some clarity on the modelling?
Which would just be very specific with the question in terms of this proposal.
Sorry?
You're stating about this proposal in terms of the impact.
Yes.
The generation of this proposal, looking at 16, because we're concentrating on the network busiest hours in the area of the so this proposal we're looking at 2-way routes 16 moving 2-way movements in the AFP and 14 2-way movements in the PFP. That's the addition.
Okay, thank you. Anyone like to come back on that?
Sorry, something.
Yeah, Councillor.
Just some Howard
Jones.
Jones, yeah, something completely different, if I may. It's working anyway. If we're minded to grant application, would we be able to, on the affordable housing content, stipulate that priority must be given to those in Pimpern that have a connection to Pimpern? Would we be able to make that a condition? And secondly, with the comments that were made about the orchard, would we be able, or is it apt or a silly idea to suggest that any tree planting would be that of fruit trees?
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you, Chair. Our Section 106 agreements require that the affordable housing is allocated in accordance with our housing policy in terms of housing allocations, and that does have an element of local connection. So people that show local connection would be considered in the context of our housing policy. I don't think we need anything extra there, and that is facilitated within that. Because we're not looking at this as an exception site in terms of it being just for the need of Pimpen, but that is considered in our housing allocations, local connection.
Okay.
Sorry,
Fruit trees. Fruit trees. Don't know what you think.
Well, I'm going to pass that to you.
I've got you, haven't I, Robert?
No, actually, I love orchards. I love apples. Beyond what I can explain here today. The variety. Orchards are laid out specifically for
Yes.
collection of fruit. I think to put in that sort of anything of an orchard here would not work with the design that you see before you. We do try to encourage, and as a matter of fact, it's part of the ecologist's modus operandi, is to have fruiting trees, not necessarily apples and pears, but other sorts of fruiting trees that will flower and also produce food throughout the year for different species. So it's not unusual. That will be taken into consideration. I don't think it needs to be specified.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
But please ask me about orchards later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Chair. I have a degree of sympathy with Pimpen Parish Council, so I've been looking at all their questions and see to make sure that they are at. And one there is about the noise. They raised the issue of the noise for the block of flats nearest the road. Is that a relevant factor and a relevant question?
It is, but it has been considered, and I believe we have a condition, one of the conditions addressing noise impact. So they had a noise impact assessment supporting the application, and those flats closest to the road will have triple glazing. But I can't quote that. It has been addressed, though. I did look at it, and we do have a condition on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. One of Mr. Hutchinson representing Wires spoke very clearly, very quickly, and I'm looking at the renewables. Do we have a list of what the renewables will be on this site here? Is it solar panels, renewable water recycling, electric charging, and so on and so on, please?
Chair, I don't have anything to hand other than what was put in the report, and my recollection of
I think it is.
it was Wyatt, the owner, presenting to the previous committees.
The other side
to
was.
make it disclosed about
Yeah,
this, yeah.
yeah, I remember that.
I'm told that numbers were sent by the applicant, but no, I'm sorry, I don't have any specific details.
I think in the sustainability and climate change statement, PV and air source heat pump.
So in the committee report, page 33, section 14 talks about sustainability, climate change, and it is referenced.
Yeah, fully compliant with emerging building regs, PV and air source heat pump.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, got it.
Yeah, so in the sustainability statement the applicant provided, there'd be a mixture of PV and air source heat pumps, so ensure that the dwellings are fully compliant with the higher specifications in the 2025 building regulations. So that's up to current standards, and that's how a lot of these sustainability improvements are sort of being advances through the building regs. So there's full buy-in for forward thinking about that, and there's other measures to conserve water through
rainwater harvesting
measures to conserve water, and then obviously the drainage strategy as a sustainable urban drainage system. So yeah, the usual measures that you'd expect to see, plus a sort of a commitment to those higher building reg standards.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. It's very helpful. I have found it in the report here as well. It seems a bit harsh if all the 106 money goes towards Blandford. Is there any way of allocating some of that to the Pinburn? Can we condition that at all, that a share, at least if this is granted?
To meet the field test, we have to ensure that they're mitigating the impacts of the development. So we'd need a specific sort of scheme or project to allocate money to. The heads of terms that you see in this report are considered to meet the field test and mitigate the impacts of the proposal. So just included in a proportion to Pinburn wouldn't meet those tests because it wouldn't be specific and it wouldn't be.
I think we could leave it to the parish council to come up with an appropriate community project that would be supported and by itself. But I think appropriate wording left a little bit looser. The parish council have to come up with a suitable community project that could be funded by SIL.
Yeah. Chair,
I think that's section 106.
Yes, go ahead. This is the point of consideration with the previous application as well, so you're aware. And you need to take in and keep in mind that this is an urban extension to Blandford, and that most of the services are going to be relied upon in Blandford.
Yeah,
so if there are services in Pinburn that you think this development is going to be attracted to, definitely we want to get that in 106, and we definitely want to support that. There's absolutely no doubt that, but it's from our point of view, it's been that it's an urban extension to Blandford, and the projects that we have identified are the ones that need to be supported. So,
Chair, I take that completely and understand that, but I think some appropriate wording to be the politically correct to allow that if there is an appropriate project that would be suitably supported, then that should go. What I don't want is to see 100% of the money going into Blandford, and there might be other ways. And just appropriate wording. And on the basis of that, I'm happy to propose granting this. I don't think we've got any planning grounds to refuse it. And I just feel for Pinburn, but it is what it is. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rideout.
Thank you, Chairman. Linda Rideout, Gillingham Ward. I'd be happy to second this proposal. The reason being that I'm looking at strategic development. It's going to be seen within the built form of Blandford once the other approved applications are built out. And I think from the setting of the national landscape, I'd say it will be seen within the built development, and there is screening. But it's also bringing forward lots of benefit which we must look at as a whole. It's addressing disability, adaptability homes, climate change, and affordable, which is much needed in the Blandford area. So I think looking at the benefits of the scheme as a whole far outweighs any harm. So happy to second.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Councillor Apothecary.
Thank you, Chairman. I was waiting for you to say right word discussion. I hadn't realised we were going to miss that whole stage. And I have to say I'm really struggling with the whole Pinburn neighbourhood plan concept. As members of this committee will know, I'm considered a champion of neighbourhood plans. I think when local people give up their time voluntarily on behalf of their communities to bring a neighbourhood plan which has to be agreed by everybody before it can go forward. And the other thing is, of course, we all know neighbourhood plans have to be compliant with national policy, planning policy, and local planning policy. This neighbourhood plan here, which was became
2022.
2022.
And then it was updated in 2022. So Pinburn have done their very best, I think, to make sure that their neighbourhood plan is relevant. you know, rather as Councillor Price said, I feel I was sorry for Pimpern. Through no fault of their own, they've got Big Brother down the road that's, you know, creating an urban sprawl, frankly, in, on their patch in their neighbourhood. And it's unlikely that they're going to receive any financial compensation. And things like the gap, which doesn't sound very much to us, perhaps, but it's really important to confirm that there is a designated gap between their village and the town of Blandford. And I just feel it should be given the full weight that neighbourhood plans are allowed to have, in which case it doesn't comply, in which case this application doesn't comply with the neighbourhood plan. And so that's the bit I'm struggling with, to be honest with you. I can see there's a logic, there's a hole, why don't we plug it up? But and actually I'm concerned about highway as well. That's a neighbouring thing.
Yeah.
And actually no difference. But I'm not very quick with road numbers, sorry. Usually go by the bus, actually. The Salisbury Blandford Road is a neighbourhood, as is the bypass a neighbourhood. And they're fast, and so a lot of traffic comes through there. Lots of lorries use that road. We're trying to encourage kids to walk to school. It doesn't sort of sit very well with me, that bit as well. So those are the two things I'm really struggling with, to be honest with you. And I don't feel I can support this application on the basis that it flies in the face of a perfectly up-to-date neighbourhood plan that people have worked hard to produce. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jones.
I feel very torn on this because I absolutely agree with my colleague. It's not just dismissing completely neighbourhood plans, but it's outside both settlement boundaries. It's in the countryside, which I think is the last resort when it comes to housing and not the first. But I also know that this company, they are superb builders. They build very beautiful estates. They make a real place rather than just little box houses. So I do feel very torn, and I'm not sure if we vote against this, I'm sure we would lose at appeal. So I concede that as well. But I just wanted to put out there that I am conflicted.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Yeah, similar views to Councillor possibly that, because it's going against the principle that, you know, it's a conflict. But also the highway, it's the highway issues that I'm really concerned about on that A354.
Yeah, I don't
sort of road. I just don't feel it's up to the design that it should be, especially if it's connected to that other development.
Okay, thank you. Will you please go ahead, Marianne, something to say?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. It's Marianne Ashford here, Legal Services. Yeah, just in relation to the proposal where you're wanting to seek some obligation for Pimpern, I think it's difficult to require Section 106 obligation for Pimpern unless unless you're able to identify a planning impact that needs to be mitigated specifically. Not to simply put provision for Pimpern generally is sufficient because it's added in the past already. It wouldn't comply with the regulation text. So I think we need to hear a little bit more on what impact is being needed to be mitigated. That's something we can put forward as part of the Section 106 package, if you like.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone like to come back on any of those points, or are we ready now to go for the vote?
Give it a go.
I think we're ready to go to the vote. Okay, so
can we just?
It needs to be clear then that
proposal was going to be noted, needs to be proposed as it stands.
With the modifications to the conditions. Can you put that slide up?
Yes, we could put that slide up, please, so we're clear on what we're voting for.
Yeah. So Councillor Fry can confirm his confirmation.
Sorry.
Second.
Brilliant.
On the recommendation as it is proposed without any obligation for input.
Really has to be as per this.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. And also the additional conditions that Robert ran through, the additional bat and bird box, here we go, up on the screen. And also the requirement that prior to any decision, we adopt a formal screening opinion.
Okay.
Just asking Councillor Fry just to as it is.
Opposed.
Yeah.
Councillor Fry.
Chair, I'm content as I hear and I understand what has been said. I would just like to add to my comments from Councillor Apothecary that there's 490 houses going to be built outside the Pimpern boundary scheme line there. This is for 33 houses or 36 houses in there. We have no planning reasons other than the local plan to refuse it, and we would lose on appeal on this one, I feel very strongly. On that basis, I'm happy to continue to that.
Okay, thank you. So I think we're ready to go for a vote on this proposal, this recommendation here. Grant subject to adoption of a formal screening opinion, the signing of Section 106 legal agreement and planning officer set out in the report and discussed here today. Okay, so thank you. So all of those in favour of the proposal? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. All of those against? 3. So 4 in favour, 3 against. So those in favour carry it. So therefore, the recommendation has been approved for the planning application for P/FUL/2024/06927. This is land south of Bolney, Salisbury Road, Blandford Forum. Okay, thank you everyone for that. So that application has been heard. Yeah.
Absolutely illegal.
Okay.
Terrible. You shouldn't be pleased with yourself today.
Okay, so do we have any urgent items?
That's an urgent item.
Is there any exempt business? This. So I now declare this meeting closed at 11:53. Okay, well, thank you everyone. But if we could have another discussion before everyone disappears, we have another meeting, planning committee meeting coming up where we need to discuss dates, to discuss